Hi and welcome to update number 5 for the Jamstack Incubation Engineering Group. I have a few different things that I want to talk about today. One is the progress update. I don't have a lot to say on this. I've spent most of the time last week with getting the code ready for review and have that run in the background from now on. Meanwhile, I've started my preliminary work on the next task, which is the CDN delivery of pages. So what I've been doing is I've tried to check out how to deploy sites built with GitLab pages via a CDN, to be precise, with Fastly. This is something that any developer can do today. But I went in and had a look at how it works and maybe how we can streamline that whole process. So here's a quick video update on how that went. So let's assume I have a very little application that compiles to static files. This is a Nuxt.js application which is built on Vue, but it could be Next.js or anything else. Would be very similar. So let's say we have this small little application. So this is what it looks like locally. Very small, compiles to a static site, but very simple. And I have a repository in GitLab where this project is stored. It doesn't have a GitLab CI YAML file yet, so if I wanted to deploy this to pages, I'm greeted by this little screen. So yeah, I have to create my own GitLab CI YAML file. I know that by now, but that might be a point of friction for new developers. So I'm going to add a GitLab CI YAML file here. I know I need to add the image. So now that the job has succeeded, I can go to pages and see a link of where my page is deployed at. And I'm still getting a 404 because it takes a little while. So here we go. So we now have this very long URL to use for my application. We could add a new domain and redirect the domain to that, but still the page would be delivered by GitLab Pages servers, which aren't cached or anything. And they're mostly located in the US. So we get a lot of load times for non-US clients. So the idea is to use Fastly in front of this page instead. So how are we doing that? This is Fastly. I've decided to go with that because it has a very up-and-coming feature, which is compute at edge, which is something I like to try in the future. But we're not using that at the moment. We're just trying to integrate it with CDN here. So I'm creating a new service. Let's use a deliver service, which is basically just a CDN for this new application. So I want to give this a new domain. Okay, I'm going to add that. So this is the domain that my website is going to be reachable under for the world, having been cached. Now on the back end, this section basically tells Fastly, whenever you get a request to this original domain, get the files for that from this host. And here is where it gets a little bit confusing for the user. So I was misled to think that I needed to create a domain for this particular application first, but it turns out I don't need to do that. So what I can provide here, and what GitLab, Fastly needs here, is not this whole entire URL, but just the host bit, which is gitlab.org.gitlab.io. This is my organization on GitLab. .git and the GitLab pages domain. Now, where I was confused is this is a host for every single project, used by every single project inside the GitLab org organization. So how is GitLab pages able to discern that this is actually going for my project? I mean, in this URL, it does it by identifying this whole path. This is a path that points to my project. And in here, I can't give the whole path. It won't allow me. It's invalid, which makes a lot of sense because it wants to know the host. So originally, my first thought was, okay, I need to add a domain just for Fastly. Add a new domain to this so that I have a domain that I can give to Fastly that is directly connected to this pages project. Turns out I don't even need to do that. So instead, I can really just give it gitlab-org.gitlab.io. And then in pages settings, I can add a new domain and say, this is the domain that I've used for Fastly, and just add it here. And I don't even need to go through all the validate steps. And this is maybe something that we need to improve, because now this domain, some Jamstack, is connected with this with his pages project. And if I go here and activate this service in Fastly, I can now access this URL. It will probably take a little while again. Here you go. This is working. After this experience, here's a few ideas that I took away from that. One is update the user interface to improve the distinction between adding a domain, just registering that it exists, and the whole TLS settings, like verifying that you own the domain is only necessary if you want to get a Let's Encrypt certificate, for example, which is not necessary if the TLS is handled by a CDN like Fastly. And I think there's a huge area of improvement where we can streamline the whole process by integrating Fastly via their API into the GitLab UI, like creating a service, connecting that service with a repository or the domain. All that can be done using the API, and I think that's an area that I'd like to explore a little bit. I want to take a step back and explain why am I thinking about CDN in general. Main reason is the performance improvements are fantastic. Here's a quick benchmark that I did. Here's a domain that is hosted on GitLab pages, and these are the response times when the GitLab server itself is responding. You see that the US has good response times, but everywhere else is rather slow. If I load that page through Fastly, the first time, the initial call is even slower than calling it with pages. The reason is because Fastly needs to connect to pages first to build their cache. But once it's cached, here's subsequent loads, it's much faster, and that is across the world because Fastly obviously is living on the edge. Apropos edge, the reason why I went with Fastly is because their edge computing is now in general availability. And that is something that I'd really like to explore because it offers us huge amounts of opportunity. For example, just having this use case, we could, instead of having Fastly connect to the Pages server, we could deploy the compiled applications to the edge, and we get rid of the caching steps, so the initial load would be much faster as well. Or, looking even further in the future, is we could create services or allow services that build on demand. I think this is all very exciting. And it's a great lookout for the next couple of months here in the Jamstack SEG. I hope you'll join me again next week, and bye.